Americans that used us and tried their best to assimilate us to love the people who conquered us and enslaved us. You are now doing your best to assimilate us to love our conquerors by studying their humanities, studying their way of living, further denying that we have any ability to do for self. I say we need inside-out cultivation. You good-for-nothing misleaders have absolutely no faith in us. So you propose nothing for us to develop. Your actions say, we're not worth it. We have to go outside, find some Europeans, find some Americans to develop you. Because we no sense of working with you, you're inferior. You can't be developed. So why then do you want us to assimilate to try to be black white people? Has it ever occurred to you to give a little time to understand how you came to be? What your ancestors did so that you could have this opportunity? And all you do is like the proverbial overseer. But you're riding on a mule with a bullwhip in your hand, letting us to know the only way forward. Was she trying to tell you my time up? You should at least conceal yourself. I mean, you're that brazen. Thank you, my general. The point being that you need to spend some time to understand that, yes, we are as human as the next Homo sapien. And we can be as developed as any other human being on this planet. If you had done your homework, you would realize that we have already done it. But by not being militarized, we were conquered. And now you want us to assimilate ourselves to be everything white people want us to be. Would you actually tell other races that they are of no value and that they should actually try to be white? Because how can we assimilate in this so-called melting pot when we don't know who we are? And you don't care to know who we are as long as we vote for you. Our curriculum should be able to explain to us and to you how it was that if you look at a map and you see that tiny little area called Europe, how did they manage to conquer this whole big continent of Africa? You interested in that? How did we get to the Caribbean? Have you ever heard of the name Queen Nzinga? She was the queen of the monarchy of Ndongo. The Dutch invaded Ndongo in the 17th century. It was 372 years to the date today that the Dutch parliament gave one John Smoke the authority to take of the captured from the Ndongo 100 of those captives to St. Eustatia, 200 to St. Croix. Have you ever heard of Ndongo? You ever heard of Angola? Never heard of Angola in West Africa either. That was the ignorance of the Europeans. Angola was the names of the king in the monarchy. They couldn't pronounce Ndongo. Are you interested in any of these things of what your forefathers had to go through? Because what you seem to be doing is telling our young people they have no value. They have no worth. They must prepare themselves to be good, white, assimilated workers. And I'm here to tell you that in this age of information, where the world is a click away, if I was a teenager, I would be just as rebellious. Because I would say, what the hell you all want us to be? Why is it that you are so convinced that there is no need to develop us? Educator. Who will educate our educators? So that we can begin to understand that it is you and I, we, the African descendants in this place called the Virgin Islands, we are the ones who need to be developed. And we're not going to be developed by studying the ways of our conquerors. Did it ever occur to you that that's what our curriculum is? I know you want the federal dollars. Has the federal government ever said that you cannot have a curriculum with your own history? No. I studied that too. But you on your own decided that that would be too rebellious. Federal government would like that. But you could get the federal dollars by teaching their curriculum. Make the school day and the school year longer then. But add a curriculum that develops us as individuals with our own history and our own self-worth. I'm not comfortable in this place, you know. But before I get too much carried away, I would ask of the 4 senators present, because Senator Sanders has been kind enough to summarize as we go along. If you would please indicate to the African descendants in here, why is it that each one of you feel that the only development that can take place here is that which you import from somewhere else? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have the young lady. Sir, would you want to come up? Who you have after him? Mr. Massey?
Are you ever going to respond to me?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want everybody to get a chance to talk.
Well, you are talking after everybody else, you know, Senator.
Where you going? Don't be going too far.
Sit down
Okay, no
and
problem.
let's deal with,
Yes. Whatever they do. After these two, then you can wrap up. Okay, she first. Young lady?
Excuse me, sir. After Ms. Edwards, you still have
Yeah, you will.
7 more speakers. After Ms. Edwards presents, we have 7 other speakers as well. Just
I'll tell you what we'll do is this. After this young lady, we'll have the senators respond to the question that was put on the floor, the two senators, then we'll continue, and then we'll have a meaningful dialogue. One of the things that I emphasized in the beginning is that I understand that we want to talk and we want to put our points out, but at the same time, we also want a solution, a concept, an idea, like what the young man stated, what Mr. Liebert stated. We want really an idea that we can talk about and come back, like what Aisha said, in a couple of weeks, come back with a solution, come back with an idea that we can work on and make it a reality. It's not just, I understand that we're venting, I understand that we have a lot of frustrations, but we also have to come up with ideas. And that's the basis of it. I'm going to ask this young lady to step over here too, because you're going to be one of the speakers too, somebody from the younger generation. Ma'am, you have the floor. And let's just say for the record, not to confuse anybody, what we'll do is that at the end of 4 minutes, she's going to let you know that you have a minute left, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Shalima Edwards. First, I would like to give thanks to the creators of this universe, both feminine and masculine energies. Give thanks to our ancestors, those who trotted on this island, those who just wanted to be human beings. I give thanks and recognition to those who are present. Sister Aisha, thank you for having the strength to continue with the march every year, the third year. And I have to say that I sat down in the park and I was in pain. And I cried because I was tired of seeing the young children who have lost loved ones, their father, mother, cousins, relatives. And I was very frustrated with where are we going? So you have taken it to another level, and I'm grateful that you took it so far that we have this opportunity to share it so that it could be recorded. I am a daughter, I am a niece, I am a cousin of those who have lost lives. And when I speak, I don't just speak for Shalima, but I speak for those who would like to speak, but who's not present here physically, but they are here in spirit. I want to thank all the speakers. Brother Mario, you touched something really close. And what you touched was Queen Nzinga. Let's share a little more history. They say the Maroons, where did they come from? Who were they? They came from the tribe of Queen Nzinga. Here on this island, St. Croix, Santa Cula, I. How many of our children know about this? How many of our adults know about this? Having this be taught to them, for sure, would instill some pride. For sure should instill some love for themselves, because I love who I am. I love my ancestors. I love what they stood up for. When I heard that this is going to happen and Aisha and the Angry Mothers, I first thought about the mother that we live on, which is Mother Earth, who have been abused, misused, and when she's angry, what does she do? Sometimes she destroys. Volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricane, floods. Now you think about a mother, a female, who have brought children into this place, who have nurtured, but at the same time, we could destroy and we could build things. So I'm saying this to say, I'm not leaving out our men. And just remember, everybody came from a mother. When there are issues in our community that affects our children, especially when they're in schools that are moldy, filled with asbestos, rodents, etc. Yes, we mothers, we need to come together. And we need to demand that our children are protected. Senator Sanes, you mentioned about laws that are in the books as it relates to, I guess, programs or what have you to help the youths. And nothing can be done if it's not being implemented. I would like to say that you all could identify funds to support programs, whether it's job training programs, so the youth could become entrepreneurs. And I will go as far as saying getting a free education or tuition be less expensive here at UVI, because these youths want to further their education, and sometimes they are put in debt because they can't afford paying tuition. Another suggestion I would like to make, and it's not new, but with the abundance of water, we should not be thirsty. Why not identify, funds to ensure that whether it be Creaky Dam or some place on this island become a reservoir to save water? Why not invest in agriculture as an industry? And let me just touch on agriculture. When you touch the land, when you touch the earth, that's oneness. But once we just continue to disregard the earth and what food can come out of it, then we're just destroying our own selves. I would say that agriculture, Department of Agriculture, there's a slaughterhouse there, right? You go slaughter your pigs, your goats, and what have you. Why not have a building in place to allow for farmers, young people who wants to go into the agriculture industry to create value-added products, whether it be jams, jellies, ice cream, juices, you name it. Have something like that in place at the Department of Agriculture. So that's basically my solutions, that I would like to offer at this time. And I like, in the future, when we're more organized, that this body, if you individuals are here or not, that we must ensure as mothers and even fathers, ensure the well-being, the protection of our land for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. What we're going to do at this time is, no, stay here, please. We'll let you speak, and then Mr. Moyet is going to reiterate the question, and then we'll have a couple of senators answer it. Sir?
Okay, good evening. I'm Rael Saki, and I know this was going to be longer than 5 minutes, so I'm going to try my best to consolidate it. When we talk about, I know we on the cusp of celebrating our transfer to the United States, but I want to talk about racism in America. And usually people's thoughts gravitate to the KKK and the use of the N-word. But for me, I'm concerned with the less obvious but more problematic forms of the phenomenon. Let me just let you know, if you don't know, Senator Bernie Sanders, I know you probably heard about him in the news, even though he hardly gets any press, but he has on his platform, under the heading of racial justice, he quotes, "We must pursue policies to transform this country into a nation that affirms the value of its people of color. That starts with addressing the 5 central types of violence waged against people of color: physical, political, legal, economic, and environmental." The focus of my presentation today will be the last of these, because I think it's one that we generally don't talk about much, and probably because it's packaged as a benefit to our community. The information I'm about to share is derived from sources readily available on the internet and have been obtained from reputable entities. Let me begin with a report done by Headwaters Economics, an independent nonprofit research group that works to improve community development and land management decisions in the Western Hemisphere. The group makes the argument that when fossil fuel development plays a prominent long-term role in local economies, there's a negative effect such as higher crime rates and lesser educational attainment. What's more, there's a risk that some communities may become overly dependent on a single industry that has a tendency to bust. Sound familiar? Okay, and I experienced this hypocrisy that we have here, where I grew up in Wim, Carlton area, and as a child I spent endless hours in the mangrove, I guess at the western end of Cross Lagoon. It no longer exists due to fallout from almost 50 years of unregulated behavior by the oil refinery. But yet, poor fishermen who are trying to support their families are strictly regulated for their activities. But what is the specific impact of environmental racism on society today, especially as it relates to increased violent activity? A brief report entitled Population and Environment focuses on the risks associated with prolonged exposure to industrial toxins. The study concluded that children are especially susceptible to suffering the harms of exposure to industrial toxins released into the environment. Certain developmental neurotoxins and respiratory toxins are known to have more of an impact on the quality of life of children than on adults. Exposure to these toxins often results in developmental disabilities, behavioral problems, and reduction in IQ. These toxins severely impact children's health and learning potential, thereby limiting later life chances at success. The International Journal of Hygiene and Environmental Health, in an independent study, agrees. Quote, "We found a significant relationship between mental retardation and developmental delays in children from exposure to arsenic and other pollutants in soil samples near their mother's residence." Now you may ask, how is that evidence of racism? Well, a study of the distribution of hazardous sites and polluting facilities around the state of Massachusetts found that communities of color are home to significantly more hazardous sites and facilities than those with small minority population. Minority populations are also more likely to live in areas where high lead exposure is likely, due either to soil contamination or lead paint. The researchers looked at the distribution of hazardous waste sites, landfills, transfer stations, polluting industrial facilities, power plants, and incinerators, and found that high minority communities face a cumulative exposure rate to environmentally hazardous facilities and sites that is nearly 9 times greater than that of low minority communities. Recall, this is the state of Massachusetts, a supposed bastion of so-called liberal politics in America. Now, turn this back to our community, which is a predominantly black and Hispanic one, particularly St. Croix. Where was our refinery and our power plant located? Prophet, Harvey, JFK, LBJ, Chabot. So how many years were our children in those areas and the ones directly downwind exposed to these toxins? Is it any wonder that many of our children have challenges in our public schools where most of them go? Is it any wonder that our teachers are burnt out dealing with a lack of resources in conjunction with a significant psychologically impaired student population? Yet parents and teachers alone are deemed responsible for the dysfunction symptomatic of our education system. What about those leaders that fail to properly educate themselves on the causative factors that contribute to the dysfunction? Add to that the damage that's done to our limited land space, the mindset in these islands that agricultural development is not feasible, and the dependence upon imported food and water of questionable quality. A study published in the American Journal of Psychiatry shows that children who experience malnutrition exhibit strikingly increased behavioral disorders and aggressive behavior as they grow older. I'm going to skip down to finish up here. Is it not therefore evident that there are a host of factors conspiring together to create a perfect storm that threatens to totally engulf our community with our children as its first casualties? In many other communities, the leadership is not truly representative of the communities most affected, but our situation should be different. We all share a common bond. This legislature has the opportunity to distinguish itself from previous ones by carving out a legacy as the one that begins the healing. Let's address every form of violence against the people. The generation of turtles in Sandy Point should not receive more protection than future generations of Virgin Islands. And I have four recommendations.
No, but hold on to that. Hold on to that. I'm going to come back to you.
My 5 minutes, what?
Sir, Would you like to repeat your question?
Well, it's based on a statement that everything grows from the inside out. Why do you, our representatives, want us to grow from the outside in? Why is it that we don't ever hear of initiatives, proposals, bills, legislation to develop us? We have been deprived for centuries, and we want to grow and develop. And it's axiomatic that has to happen from the inside out. Yet here you are insisting that we must grow from the outside in. I would like for you to tell us, how is it that you expect us to grow and develop from the outside in?
Thank you. Any of you start? Same 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon to everybody, and good afternoon for you guys to come in. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. I don't know how you would assume that that is the mind frame of everyone in the Senate, that our objective is to grow from the outside in and not from the inside out. I think a tremendous amount of responsibility and onus is always placed on legislators, and the onus and responsibility is always removed from the community and parents. Late last year, I proposed a bill entitled the Standards Review Committee that was seeking for the Department of Education, in conjunction with the Board of Education, retired educators, to take a look at Common Core state standard, to take a look at the Virgin Islands standards, and incorporate the standards of the Virgin Islands that's going to teach about the Virgin Islands and our history into Common Core and adapt it. The bill was held in committee. I've heard over and over that we are not doing anything to teach about the Virgin Islands history or about African history. And I beg to differ as a former educator. I am so sorry that I forgot 3 books that I had that I just got today that was designed by Dr. Larson and a team of Virgin Islanders to teach Virgin Islands history from kinder through second. They're in the stage of developing the next phase of books. Virgin Islands history is mandated for all high school students to graduate. Caribbean history is offered, it was mandated, it is now offered as the elective. There is enough sections for over 200 students per year to take the class. When I was at Complex, I instituted African History 1 and African History 2 to teach individuals about themselves. Every elementary school on this island take historical trips on a regular basis, whether it's to Wim Great House, the fort, whether it's to bring in culture bearers. The month of March is celebrated big in the Virgin Islands as Virgin Islands History Month, and we bring traditional culture bearers on the island to all of the school on a regular basis. We have taught the local music. St. Croix Educational Complex, where I was principal, had the first Kwelbe band of students. And we had a generation of them. I do not in any way ever want to find an excuse for violence. Is there a need to teach our children more about themselves? Of course there is, and there will always be that. We'll always need to teach our children more about their past, about the African heritage, about the great Virgin Islands leaders that have lived in this place. But to equate violence, to try to equate it with the fact that you're saying, oh, they're not taught, is a wrong premise. Is a totally wrong premise. It is not the responsibility of any parent to raise their children up to a life of violence. by stating that they were not taught about themselves. Because the same whites that we're calling about in the Virgin Islands ain't killing one another. So if you're learning a white curriculum, which I don't agree with, but if you're learning a white curriculum that's so whiteified, what is the aspect that make you kill one another when they're walking around here and killing each other? I have always clearly said, we have quarreled about guns being an issue and we don't manufacture guns. But every parent here needs to think, do we manufacture killers? When you have a 30-year-old sitting in your house, never work a day in their life, walking with a wad full of money, driving a car, coming with a gun in and out your house every day, and you accept it, you are the problem. But then when something happens, you flip it and you say, oh God, poor this person. You cannot accept mediocrity. I am not going to accept mediocrity from my children for nothing. That nobody going to tell me, oh, the system do this, the system do that. You will learn. It is your responsibility, and I, as an educator, need to make sure that they learn. In Cuba, the children are learning on bare floors, barely any resources, and the literacy rate way higher than any state, and they have no bunch of resources. But they have a want to learn. And we in this community don't want to push the want to learn. We want to find every single excuse as to why they can't learn. And all of that is hogwash. The same public school that a lot of people children went to, my children went to. My child is an engineer. But Brian granddaughter there in med school. The next one is a bio major. There are many, many success stories, but you have to want it. If you have a child from 0 to 4 years old and you have no books in the house, you have no type of learning material, and then going to send them to school, and you didn't even prepare that foundation, and then blame the education system, what about you? When you calling your child and cursing and carrying out, bring your F in this, bring your F in this, your little mother this and that, your father this and that. What is your responsibility? When we have these bunch of men in this community just standing in the corner and got 8 or 9 children and they want to raise their own children, more interested in just hanging out and being with the boys and being home with their child. Where's the parents? I've been up and down with everybody children in my truck carrying them all over this place. Because I want to make sure that I'm a responsible, not only parent, but Virgin Islander because I care about this place. Put your hand in and begin to volunteer. Don't just talk. You walk the walk. Make sure that you are there to make sure that your children are doing what they're supposed to do.
Test. Okay. Thank you, Senator Violet. Okay, no problem.
The most interesting situation I had recently, I was stationed at Arthur Richard School. Everybody at Arthur Richard School, at this school where the children are so bad, the children can't learn. When I went there, the retention rate was 40-something%. 40-something%. Within a year, I was able to decrease fights in that school and increase the promotion rate just by being visible and holding children accountable. And sometimes just simply giving them a hug and telling them you got the ability to do what you're supposed to do. We have lost all focus of our children. I can't deal with them. You take care of them. There's yours. You got to want to deal with them too. I can't deal with them alone. As a community, we have issues. And this isn't the only place that have issues. Every part of the world have issues. But we have to do a better job of volunteering and making sure that our children know that we believe in them and want them to be educated. When a community push education, you're able to move very, very far. This community, for whatever reason, don't like to push education. And many times you hear the old cackle on the radio, oh, all of them got a degree, they ain't got no common sense. What the guy need degree for? The children hearing now when I was saying that. And the same people are not saying that, sending their children to college to be educated. But then you got next set that feel it is okay. Well, it ain't okay in my book. I mean holding nobody responsible for mine. That is my job.
Senator Francis.
Good evening, everyone. I certainly want to thank Aisha and the rest of the mothers that's here this evening, as well as the other supporters, for being here and bringing attention to the situation that we're up against here in this community. And while we sit here and having this discussion, again, I'm hoping that we could be honest and bring everything on the table so that we could have a discussion, a dialogue, a discourse, and hopefully we could leave here with some solution. How do we move forward with the problem that we're experiencing? The questions will ask whether or not we're doing anything within the legislature to affect the curriculum that's going on within our schools and teaching our students. And I can't speak to any other legislature. Certainly as a first-term senator, I know of the many discussions that I've had with my colleagues regarding the Department of Education and others not doing what we expect and hold them responsible for. There's a number of laws in the book that we feel that could be put in place. However, because of lack of funding or other excuses, we've seen that they're not actually being put in place. We continue to hold the Department of Education responsible. We encourage and we support the Board of Education as well so that we could start to have a functioning education system. We're talking about perhaps bringing back civics into our schools, ensuring that we have, again, VI history and that it in fact is being taught. Recently, I held a symposium where we want to look at the school to prison pipeline. We're seeing where situations are happening in the school where initially these matters were being handled by the school. Now, because police are in the school, every minor infraction that happened, police is being called. Students are sent off to the police department. Students end up in YRC for simple reason. I spent this morning at juvenile court. Again, because I truly want to break that cycle. I truly believe that minor infractions need to be handled at the school. These are things that we did when we were students. Police weren't called. Simple fights, simple destruction of properties. While, yes, we want to ensure that students are held accountable and actions are taken, because of the fear within our schools, and rightfully so, by some of our teachers, they want the police to respond to these issues. So now we're forcing from schoolhouse to jailhouse. How do we break that cycle? This discussion this evening, well, thus far, I haven't heard anything about parental control. How do we start to hold our parents accountable for some of their actions? We don't breed criminals. But we're seeing where, again, I serve in the Juvenile Bureau, where they were getting younger and younger and younger, where parents bring their students in and just turn them over to the police department, Juvenile Bureau. And it got from 14, it came down to 12 and 10, 9, where they're saying, I can't deal with them. You all do something with them. We have a lot of work to do in this community. And I don't think that there's any silver bullet to address the problem that we're seeing here. We have poverty, we have mental illness, we have alcohol and drug dependency. You know, we have a whole host of problems that require all hands on deck. For us to sit here or sit out there and point fingers, I think that all we do is defeat the purpose. Certainly with a collaboration, and I don't have all the answers, this legislature don't have all the answers. You wouldn't believe the difficulty at times just to move legislation through this legislature. It takes a process. I welcome any advice. I welcome any suggestion. I'm very approachable. My office is open. Any suggestions you make, again, we try to move and develop a consensus so that we could effect the changes that we need here. We're looking at second chance program. We're seeing where, again, individuals that end up in